Today we are comparing an iPhone to an Android smartphone. We have the iPhone mini right here and Samsung's Galaxy S10 Plus. Unfortunately, I have the extreme opposite of sides regarding both phones and from makers, with the iPhone mini being the smallest iPhone offered by Apple currently, and the Samsung S10 Plus being their plus size, so equivalent to like the iPhone Pro Max. I do have to specify one major caveat regarding the performance of both these phones that you may notice when we go through some of the options available. The iPhone 12 mini, is a substantially newer phone with a much newer processor compared to Samsung's Galaxy S10 Plus we have here. The iPhone mini came out in 2020, where the S10 Plus came out in 2019. It is currently running the Qualcomm 855, which is about 3 processors below Qualcomm's current processors for cell phones, where the iPhone 12 mini is running the A14 Bionic chip, which is Apple's top of the line cell phone chip they currently have. As a cell phone enthusiast myself, I personally believe that the iPhone is the far superior phone for your average phone consumer compared to Android. The first thing we're going to look at today is going to be the battery size. Of course, the iPhone 12 mini is going to have a smaller battery just because the general size of it, where the S10 Plus is going to have a much larger battery. The iPhone mini has about a battery size of 2,227 milliamp hours, where the Galaxy S10 Plus has 4,100 milliamp hours. So almost double the battery life. On average, based off my own personal use and experiences with both these phones, I am getting about 4 hours of screen on time for both phones. Here on both phones, I have the battery information displayed. As you can see here on the iPhone 12 mini, I am getting today about an average of 3 hours and 8 minutes with a screen off time about 2 hours and 17 minutes. Vice on the Galaxy S10, it does state that I have about 1 day and 20 hours left of battery, and that honestly isn't 100% true. That's not taking into consideration really any usage, as I haven't used the Galaxy phone in about a year. And here on the iPhone 12 mini, I can show you my past 10 days, showing you my average screen on time about at the 4 hour mark and 2 minutes. Here you're probably wondering how a phone that has almost double the battery life is still only getting about the same amount of screen on time as a phone drastically smaller than itself. Well, that comes down to one, Qualcomm's chips are very battery hungry. Samsung's phones in general tend to be very battery hungry. This is tended due by the issue of Samsung has to purchase all of their parts separately, so they buy a Qualcomm chip, Intel wireless card, and then they build their own motherboards, where on the iPhone 12 we have, it's all Apple. Apple builds their processors, they build their memory, they build their motherboards, and it's all integrated into each other to work flawlessly. Now keep in mind regarding the battery for each phone, each individual's performance is going to differ based on their own usage. Based off my own personal usage, I get to the end of the day on both devices about 20%, and that's even using 5G on the iPhone 12 mini, which the current 5G technology is a little new still, so it's a huge battery hog. Now regarding 5G on the iPhone 12 mini, if I were to turn off 5G, I would comfortably say I'd probably get another solid hour screen on time and still probably end the day about the same average battery life. Another major thing most people look into when trying to decide a phone is storage. Most phones nowadays will come at what I feel the sweet spot for your average person is the 128 gigabyte storage. As you can see here, I have barely scratched the available storage in both phones. I've had the iPhone 12 mini for about a year, and I was using the Samsung Galaxy S10 from 2019 to when I purchased mini, so about a year on itself as well. When it comes to storage regarding cell phones, that's mostly a personal preference. It really depends on what you're going to use your phone for. If you're a person that takes a lot of photos, likes to have a lot of videos, likes to keep their own music on their phones, the 128 gigs is still going to be that perfect sweet spot for the average person, unless you consider yourself a quote unquote power user. And then you can start bumping up to the higher storage options, where that is one thing the Samsung phone has over the non-pro version of iPhone 12, where the max memory on the iPhone 12 mini is going to be 556 gigabytes compared to Samsung's 512 gigabytes, and there's even an option for up to a terabyte of onboard memory. Samsung also has additional benefits regarding storage. Is they have expandable storage up to 1 terabyte on the Galaxy S10 Plus, and on their newer phones, I do believe it's up a little higher to even up to 5 terabytes, depending on if you can find fast enough SSD card to input to your phone. Where on the iPhone, the storage you get when you purchase a phone is the max storage you're going to get the entire time. One major difference between both these phones is going to be the operating system, obviously. So we have on the Samsung S10 Plus, we're running Android 11 currently, with Samsung's own version of Android on top of it called One UI. We're on the iPhone 12 mini, we're running iOS 14, and that's the same across the board for all iPhones, where on the Android devices, you're going to get some, depending on how old it is, some might be able to still receive up to Android 11. Some also still might not be able to receive an update. It really depends on current carriers. Some carriers support phones a little longer, some don't. It also depends on Samsung themselves. Samsung has historically only supported phones for about 2 years, where with Apple, you're solidly expected to receive support 3, 4, 5 years possibly. Even now, the iPhone 6 is still out there. Most people have an iPhone 6, and it's still fully supported by Apple, where if you had really any of the Galaxy phones below the 10, you're going to start noticing lack of support, lack of security updates, and those kind of things. One major noticeable difference between both operating systems is with iOS, you have one single app for most things. You have your messaging app, you have your phone app, you have Apple's calendars, you have the options to download Google's calendars, you have Apple's own Mails app, but you also have the option to download Gmail or whatever your personal preferred email app is, where on the Samsung Galaxy devices, you have issues of double apps, meaning you have 2 apps that do the exact same thing that come preloaded on the phone when you purchase it. For example, here we have Samsung's own calendar app and then Google's calendar app. You have Samsung's own messaging app, and you have Google's messaging app. With these apps that are pre-installed and Samsung having their own version of Android on top of Android itself, their One UI OS, you can't remove these apps, and it becomes confusing for the average cell phone user who's not super savvy when it comes to technology, meaning they might use one app or the other and not realize that there's 2 different apps. And even when coming into this portion here, which they call the app library, they might click this messaging app when they have been actually using the Google messaging app, and start wondering why a lot of their text messages and that kind of stuff are missing or out of order, or showing that they have ones that they haven't replied to when they actually have. Where with iOS, you have iMessage. That's it. There's no questions, concerns. You know it's going to work every single time. Another benefit of iOS is iOS's rendition of Android's version of the app library. As you can see here, it has pretty much put every single app that I own into a nice little, easy to find, easy to organize folders for myself. Where here on Android, you have an app library. It's done by alphabetic order, and you get more pages as more apps you download. One portion of Android OS that I personally prefer over iOS is its customization. I can make my home screen on that Samsung phone there look however I like. Where on the Apple phone, it's going to look exactly like that. Even across other Apple phones, it's going to look close to that kind of rendition. Where here on the Samsung phone, I can show you we have themes, which allow you to drastically change the functionality and look of your phone. Here it's going to show you what the background would look like. You can even change the actual icons themselves. You can change the font size, where you want to put them. Your widgets can be whatever size, where on Apple here, you have all of Apple's basic icon design. Most of your widgets, you can change them to be small, big, medium, and that's about it. Where on a Android device, I can take my widget app and change it to however large I want, to some extent, of course, depending on the widget. But for examples like the Google app here, if I make it bigger, it's going to make the widget itself look drastically different. I personally I like the nice, clean little, just small G there. I'm a big fan of the minimalistic look of a home screen. As you can see here, I don't have any additional pages except for the required Samsung like news options. The same thing Apple has over here. Each OS has their own version of biometrics. Here, if I lock the Android phone real quick, you can see that there is an in-screen fingerprint sensor. It works most of the time. And then where on your Apple devices, you're going to have, let me get close, you're going to have the face unlock, which you can see. There we go. It's locked. Show my face. And it's instantly unlocked. Biometrics really come down to personal preference. And even now, recently in the year of 2020, when we were all wearing masks, the fingerprint scanner was definitely the superior option. But now that we're back into a time period where we're no longer wearing masks as often, I still firmly believe that the Face ID is a stronger, more secure, and faster solution, as I'm someone that works quite often with my hands. I do a lot of hobbies that beat up my hands, and there's a lot of times where the fingerprint sensor just won't read my finger, just because I have either dirt on my finger or I cut myself or something along those lines, where Face ID, it works 100% time every single time. There's no frustration of, oh, it's not opening up, I have to now punch my code in. Each operating system is their on-screen navigations. So with Apple, you can swipe that way. You can swipe up from the home screen, which brings up all your previously opened apps. Even like Google on web page, just quick Google search. You can go back by swiping to the left sometimes. Or you also have the on-screen navigations, where on the Samsung device, let's open up Google as well. On the Samsung device, you can press and hold the center button for your Google Assistant. You have swipe up from the right, which will bring up all your previously opened apps. And then if swiping up from the left is going back. Me personally, I'm more comfortable using the Samsung navigations, and I personally prefer them. I wish Apple would implement something like that. I'm not a fan of kind of the single option of the quote unquote home button that they have got rid of. And even with inside Google, you can notice there isn't any on-screen navigation required for Android devices. So pulling up a website, you can just flick up that way and it'll go straight back instead of having to either use the onboard navigations or trying to get the swiping navigation to work. That is kind of hit or miss depending on how often you use it. Another major thing regarding Apple versus Android, personally, I like the feel of the Samsung Galaxy phones better. They're a little skinnier than iPhones. The newer iPhone 12 has kind of got to the same concept as Google. They are now using a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio compared to Samsung's 19.9. So it's a little wider on the iPhone compared to the Samsung. But regarding the Samsung, as you can see, it's a much larger phone. It becomes very difficult for one-handed use. As you can see, I have to kind of stretch, or even your basic kind of how most people hold their phone. I can barely reach to the top of the screen and kind of have to do a shimmy to get to the top. Where on the iPhone mini, it's still a little bit of a reach. I got to shimmy a little bit, but not nearly as much. I'm not having to play foam gymnastics in my hands to try to reach the top corners or even the top right corner to push the app or navigation I'm trying to push. Now you're probably thinking, oh, of course it's one phone going to be easier than the other to use one-handed. Yes, the iPhone mini is drastically smaller. That's the reason. That's my personal reason for going with that phone size. I really enjoy that phone size. It's perfect size for me. The Galaxy S10 Plus is a little big. Does it look nice? Yes. Is it great for watching videos? 100%. As we can show you here, video quality compared to each other. Let's open up the same video for it. Put it into landscape mode. So as you can see, even on both phones, due to the aspect ratio, you're still going to get the black bars on both sides. It's a little less noticeable on the Galaxy S10 Plus just because it's a larger screen. You're not really kind of looking as far to the left and right. But with the design of the screen on the Galaxy S10 Plus, it is a curved screen. As you can see here, the screen goes all the way down to that base metal, which at times kind of causes a weird distortion, especially when you decide to expand it to the full screen form. You definitely have a lot more cut off there. I mean, you can't even read that bottom caption of what it says. Even on the iPhone as well, you can do the same, but the screen isn't as warped as much on the edges. It still has the drastic cutoff that is due to the aspect ratio, and honestly, YouTube is not being optimized for a 19 to 9 aspect ratio currently. Regarding performance between both phones, the iPhone 12, of course, performs drastically better than the Galaxy S10 Plus, mainly because it's a newer phone and it's a much faster processor. The one major difference between both these phones is the iPhone 12 mini starts below $1,000. It's like $7 something. On a non-carrier, if you go through a carrier, they usually have promotions. You can get the phone practically for free. The Galaxy S10, unfortunately, is no longer available to the public. Samsung is no longer creating the phone. But when the phone came out in 2019, the starting price for it was $999, just at that luxury flagship phone price tag of $1,000 that we have become accustomed to in 2021. But even back then in 2019, that was still seen as a very expensive phone, to where now it's not as expensive comparatively to other devices that are out there. While we're watching these videos, you may have noticed the screen quality. I will give Samsung's Galaxy S10 a much better picture quality compared to the iPhones. It has much cleaner colors, where the iPhone is a little muddled, kind of washed out a little bit. That also might be due to the blue light filter that I have on that I most likely forgot to turn off. But even on here, as you may have noticed, once we get to some larger screens, pictures that aren't as dark, even at the full screen, the Samsung phone still has a small little chin right down here at the bottom compared to iPhone, which is practically all the way up to the very edges of the screen. Another thing you may notice on both of these phones is their choice of notches or punch holes, as some will call it. As you know, Apple has the notorious Face ID notch, which is a massive hindrance. You can notice it here on the phone. Where also on Samsung they have the two camera punch hole here. It's not as noticeable, but even when it comes to viewing content, most of the time you don't even notice. Your brain just blocks it out naturally. Let's take a moment and look at some of the pros and cons of each phone. We'll start with the iPhone 12 first. Personally, the pros for me, now some of these are going to be subjective, like the overall design. It follows the classic iPhone 5 design, which was probably one of Apple's most well-received iPhone redesigns that they've done until now. The other benefits are you have the Face ID, which is a far superior option of biometrics. It's also a lot more secure. You don't have to worry about someone trying to steal all your stuff if you just have all of your apps log on through Face ID and all that stuff, especially with benefits of things like Apple Pay. It's ecosystem if you have other Apple devices. If you say you have a MacBook, iPad, Apple Watch, or even an iMac, or even all of it together, you're going to receive your text messages through all of those same devices. All of your contacts are going to sync. All of your apps are going to be in the App Store's cloud. So say if you wanted to download the Waze app here on your iPhone, but also you wanted to have your iPad and for the times you don't want to have your phone in case you want to adjust your lights and stuff in your house, you can just go in and it will automatically download the Waze app for you and have all of your presets saved as if you're using the iPhone itself. Some of the cons for the iPhone, for me personally, the biggest one is going to be that charging port. They are still using the Lightning connector even in 2021. It's also rumored that the next iPhone 13, if that's what it's going to be called, will most likely still have the Lightning connector. The issue with that is there's honestly no reason to have the Lightning connector. Especially now with how all of other Apple's products are using USB-C for power, the iPhone either needs to follow up with that, or as some of the rumors speculate, Apple might be going to a portless phone, kind of pushing the whole idea of wireless charging only. But currently, Apple's wireless charging isn't quite up to snuff compared to other competitors, so I highly doubt that that's one of Apple's options for the next few phones, or even in the near future. The main negative aspect of having the Lightning port is wherever you go, you're going to always have to have a second cable to charge your phone. Even if you have an iPad or an iMac, you're still going to need either USB-C to Lightning or USB-A to Lightning. The additional con for the phone is going to be that Face ID notch. I mean, it is still large. It's one of the largest notches out on the phone market now. And with now day and age, hopefully Apple can make that notch a little smaller coming in the future. But until then, it still maintains that iconic iPhone 10 look to it. An additional pro to the iPhone is its lack of customizability. I know a lot of people like to make their phones look however they want, but with Apple, even no matter how much you change your home screen, for instance like me, I have a very minimalistic home screen. If I were to hand my phone to my friend or even just some random stranger, for whatever reason, say I need them to call for emergency services or something like that, they know how to use the iPhone. If they're ever if they've ever used an iPhone in their life, even if the last iPhone they used was the iPhone 3G, they're still going to be familiar with how iPhones work because the fundamentals have never changed. All right, time for some pros and cons of the Galaxy S10. Pros: it has a gorgeous screen even for it being a 2-year-old phone. The other pros for some people is the customization options. You can change whatever you want to the font, what your individual apps icons look like on your home screen. You can change how many home screens you have. There's even options to download in the Play Store, which is Google's own version of the App Store. You can download what they call launchers, which pretty much puts a skin on top of your current home screen, making it pretty much function almost as a whole new phone. You can set up buttons that when you push them, they open up other things. They can be a secret folder. You can have secret buttons. The list goes on of what you can do. Mm-hmm. Some of the additional other benefits to it is they're using USB-C. They're following the industry standard right now for USB and technology. Almost any device you can find now is going to be using a USB-C device. Connector to either charge, transfer data, or all those kind of things. Even looking at things like the new M1 MacBook Airs or MacBook Pros have USB-C charging and USB-C connectors for data transfer. Some of the cons for the Galaxy S10, for me personally, is the curved screen. It makes buying accessories, screen protectors, and all that kind of stuff ridiculously hard. I'm not a huge fan of it. It causes a lot of unintentional inputs as you tend to bump it with the side of your hand, especially when you are trying to go from trying to reach the top. You can see here, my palm tends to touch, especially down here by where you can see with the 3 for notifications, my palm tends to touch the screen there. Samsung has done pretty well on doing with palm rejection technologies, but even then it still has some issues. Additional things that I'm not a huge fan of is the general lack of support over years. Most Android phones you can only ideally keep for 2 to 3 years, then you start losing security updates, and nowadays with hackers and all that stuff trying to steal your identity, losing those security updates is a major issue. So just to recap, a reason why I believe that the iPhone is a superior phone for your average consumer: it's honestly the best plug and play phone. You buy it, you put your SIM card in. If you have Android previously, you can transfer your stuff quickly. If you're a previous iPhone user, you just sign into your Apple ID and your phone does all the stuff for you. You're gonna have all your apps, everything like that. Back under the phone, all you would have to really do is re-customize your home screen. There's no fuss, it works. There's no stutter, there's no kind of issues. Yes, there's rumors that iPhones tend to get slower once a new one comes out, but that might just be a placebo effect. Where on the Android side, they're great phones. They tend to have much better specs than the iPhone, mainly because the way the Android operating system works, it needs those larger things, especially battery, because it's a much larger battery hog compared to iOS. It has better customization. You can honestly make the phone exactly how you want, but that also has a downside of you can make the phone exactly how you want. So you get a new Android phone, you're going to be spending hours upon hours getting your phone back to how you like it, where on Apple, it's switch the SIM cards, you're good to go. You might have to adjust a few things like brightness, time delays, that kind of things, but everything else is good.